Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Jim's Magnificent Miniature Motor Cars for yet another different episode, one in which we explore a scale that I've never before featured on this program, the 1/43rd scale. Okay, now as you can see from this image, this is clearly not an unboxing because both of these cars are very much out of their boxes. And for good reason. I've had these cars since 2015, so for over 6 years now. So why the heck am I featuring old cars on my program? Well, if I may be perfectly honest, this particular episode is a bit of a cautionary tale. I want to confess to you guys that I have not been the best caretaker of my cars, in the hopes that maybe some of the newer collectors among you may learn from my mistakes. Okay, now for the uninitiated among you, these two cars are two generations of Aston Martin Vanquish. The one here on the left is a Vanquish from 2000 or 2001. This model is made by Vitesse. The one here on the right is a Vanquish from 2012. This one is made by Kyosho. And if we were just going to talk about the quality of the models, okay, when they came out brand new, I would definitely rate the Kyosho much higher. It's got much cleaner lines. It looks really slick, compared to the Vitesse, which is a bit rough around the edges. And also, in terms of the real thing, I'm more partial to the 2012 Vanquish. But this video isn't about how good the cars looked when they first came out. This video is about how well the cars aged. Okay, so let's look at the Vitesse, which is a relatively older release than the Kyosho. Okay, I'm not sure if what I'm trying to show you will show up, on the camera. I hope it does. But suffice it to say that this Vitesse has aged beautifully. It looks exactly the way it did when I got it. There is no paint rash to speak of here, not on any portion of the car. And I have spent the entire afternoon looking for it because, I've come to see some pretty nasty rashes on quite a few of my cars. I've been taking out a few of my older cars over the pandemic, checking some out, just seeing how they are, checking others out to see if I can sell them. And, well, these Aston Martins happen to be among my keepers. But nonetheless, I still check them out for signs of aging. And in the case of this Vitesse, well, it has aged surprisingly well, considering that back in the day, Vitesse was not among the most renowned brands, whereas Kyosho was. Now contrast that to this Kyosho. Still looks brilliant, of course. It's still just as gorgeous as when I got it. And there's no apparent paint rash on the front or the back. But then let's get over here to the side. And again, I'm not sure if my camera can quite capture it. Bit of difficulty in this lighting. But if you look closely enough, oh, there, you can see it. Not nearly enough of it as is visible to the naked eye, but there is some really obscene paint rash on this Kyosho, and that's really, really unfortunate. Okay, now as much as I'd like to rant about how Kyosho's quality control and paint process really sucks, as much as I'd like to complain and play the angry consumer here, I can't lay all of the blame at Kyosho's feet. In fact, I'm fairly sure that a significant portion of this paint deterioration is down to the fact that in the many years that I've had this car, every time I would take it out to photograph or put on my desk or whatever, I'd hold it like this. Which, my dear collectors, my dear diecast lovers, is a no-no. I'm sure the more seasoned collectors among you knew this already, but, well, for the newer ones among you, well, learn from my mistakes. That's all I can say. And how am I sure of this? Well, I never held the Kyosho by the hood or by the back. And as you can see, well, maybe not necessarily, but there is no paint rash here. But the doors, wow, the doors, it's just really egregious. Okay, really egregious. Yeah, and yes, mea culpa, mea culpa. Now, Kyosho is not completely absolved of blame here. They are quite infamous for their cars' paint jobs deteriorating. I've had a couple of Audis that have seen similar deterioration in parts that I do not touch, like the hood. Okay, but this Aston is a really unfortunate example of damage or deterioration that, in theory at least, I could have avoided by being a little more careful where I put my fingers. So for those of you who are curious as to how one might avoid something like this, well, let me just give you a visual representation of how you should hold your cars. Like so. You know, always put your hands under it, let them touch the plastic base. Okay, I know this is old hat for all of you old timers out there, but for the newbies, take note of this. Always hold your cars, whether the 1/18 scale, 1/43 scale, or even 1/64 scale. Hold them under, hold them by the plastic base. Do not touch the bodywork, because, you know, especially if these are cars you love, especially if they're your keepers. Okay, you do not want to touch the bodywork, even if it's to hold them with a cloth, because, you know, that's still kind of exposing them to something. Maybe the Vitesse has got away unscathed because I didn't take it out as much as I took out the Kyosho, because like I said, I prefer the Kyosho. Or maybe Vitesse just has a better painting process. Or maybe I just held it better. Either way, the Vitesse has managed to age better than the Kyosho. But this is not a brand comparison. The takeaway here should simply be, okay, when handling your beloved 1/43 scale cars, your die-cast cars, be wary of what your touch can do to these things in the long run, especially if you have a brand that is vulnerable to paint rash. Now, will not touching your cars insulate them from paint rash? Well, not necessarily, but it's one less possible cause. Okay, I mean, we live in humid countries. Many of us live in humid countries. It's possible that you could, you know, go through your entire collection without laying a finger on the bodywork and they'll still get paint rash. That can happen, absolutely. But by not touching them, you know, by not touching them in certain places, you could at least reduce the risk of the paint rash. That's my hot take on this. Okay, so I hope this cautionary tale is helpful, especially to the newer collectors among you. I mean, as your collection gets older and older, you will encounter problems like this. So, you know, you better think long and hard about how you handle your die-cast items, okay? Because these may not die the way we do, but they definitely age, okay? So that's all for this video, this cautionary tale. And I hope you liked it, and I hope you find it helpful. And you guys know the drill. If you like what you see, remember to give me a like and a subscribe.